Most people ignore strange and unexplainable events, thinking they're just coincidences. But sometimes something happens that feels so mysterious. It makes people question whether there was a hidden force behind it. In this video, we're going to look at some coincidences so strange that they almost feel impossible to believe, yet they really happened. Number 10. World War I began shortly after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. His death became the spark that pushed Europe into the First World War. But years later, people became obsessed with something else connected to that tragedy: the car in which Franz Ferdinand was assassinated. According to the stories surrounding it, the car later passed through multiple owners, and strangely, many of them experienced terrible accidents, financial ruin, or mysterious deaths soon after owning it. But the strangest detail was its license plate number, A111118. Many people later noticed that it looked strangely similar to the date World War I officially ended, November 11th, 18. Number 9. Mark Twain was one of the most famous writers of his time. He was born in 1835, around the same time Halley's Comet appeared in the sky. What made this even stranger was the fact that Halley's Comet is only seen from Earth roughly once every 75 years. The comet was last seen in 1986, and it will next appear in 2061. Many years later, Mark Twain made a surprising statement. He said that he had come into this world with Halley's Comet, and expected to leave with it as well. He even said that if he didn't go with the comet, it would be the greatest disappointment of his life. And in 1910, when Halley's Comet returned one again, Mark Twain died just 1 year later. Number 8. Louis XVI received a disturbing warning when he was still young. An astrologer reportedly told him that the 21st day of any month would bring danger into his life. He was even advised that if he ever needed to go outside on the 21st, he should never travel without guards by his side. The prediction affected him deeply. As he grew older, Louis XVI became extremely cautious around that date. He avoided important decisions, stayed away from major events, and often remained inside his home on the 21st. But despite all his precautions, some of the darkest moments of his life still happened on that exact date. On June 21st, 1791, Louis XVI and his wife were arrested while attempting to escape during the French Revolution. And then, on January 21st, 1793, Louis XVI was executed. Number 7. In 1898, an author named Morgan Robertson wrote a novel called Futility, or The Wreck of the Titan. The story was about a massive luxury ship named Titan that crashes into an iceberg and sinks in the North Atlantic Ocean. But here's where the coincidence becomes terrifying. 14 years later, the real-life Titanic disaster happened, and the similarities were almost unbelievable. The fictional ship was called Titan. The real ship was Titanic. Both were considered unsinkable. Both hit an iceberg in April. Both sank in the North Atlantic Ocean. And both had far too few lifeboats for the number of passengers on board. The creepiest part? When the novel was written, Titanic didn't even exist yet. Number 6. Timur Lenk was a ruthless ruler who believed himself to be the true successor of Genghis Khan. On June 20th, 1941, Soviet archaeologists reached his ancient tomb and discovered a chilling warning written on it: "Whoever disturbs my tomb will unleash an invader more terrible than I." Despite the warning, the archaeologists eventually opened the grave. But what happened next shocked the entire world. Just 2 days later, on June 22nd, 1941, Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa against the Soviet Union. With nearly 3 million soldiers involved, it became the largest military invasion in history, starting a devastating attack on Russia. Number 5. On September 29th, 1888, at around 8:30 p.m., a woman named Catherine Eddowes was discovered heavily drunk on the streets of London. Police officers took her into custody until she recovered from the intoxication. Hours later, around 1 a.m., she was released after appearing sober enough to return home. Before leaving, Catherine gave the police a false identity. She introduced herself as Mary Kelly. But that very night, while making her way through the streets of London, Catherine was murdered by the city's notorious serial killer, Jack the Ripper. After killing Catherine, Jack the Ripper searched for another victim and murdered one more woman the same night. That woman's name was Mary Kelly. Number 4. In the U.S. state of Ohio, twin brothers were separated right after birth and raised by different families, completely unaware of each other's existence. Years later, when the two finally met by chance, they were left stunned by the unbelievable similarities between their lives. Both families had named their sons James, and even both family dogs were named Toy. As they grew older, both brothers became police officers. Both of their wives were named Linda, and each of them had a son named James Allen. But the coincidences became even stranger. Both brothers later divorced their wives and remarried, and amazingly, both of their second wives were named Betty. Number 3. In August 1945, a Japanese engineer named Tsutomu Yamaguchi traveled to Hiroshima for a business trip. On the morning of August 6th, just as he was preparing to leave the city, the United States dropped the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima. A massive explosion tore through the city, instantly killing thousands of people. Yamaguchi suffered severe burns and injuries, but somehow survived the blast. The next day, despite his condition, he managed to return to his hometown, Nagasaki. But the nightmare wasn't over. On August 9th, 1945, while Yamaguchi was describing the destruction of Hiroshima to his boss, another blinding flash suddenly filled the sky. It was the second atomic bomb. Once again, Tsutomu Yamaguchi survived the unimaginable. He became the only officially recognized person to survive both the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bombings. Number 2. In the 1860s, Robert Lincoln, the son of U.S. President Abraham Lincoln, was standing on a crowded train platform when he suddenly slipped and fell dangerously close to the moving train tracks. As the train began pulling in, Robert struggled to regain his balance and was seconds away from being crushed. But at the last moment, a man nearby quickly grabbed him by the collar and pulled him back to safety, saving his life. That man's name was Edwin Booth, one of the most famous actors in America at the time. The incident soon became widely talked about, and Robert Lincoln himself later thanked Edwin Booth for saving him. But just a few months later, the story took a horrifying turn. Edwin Booth's younger brother was John Wilkes Booth, the man who assassinated Abraham Lincoln. Number 1. Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy are connected by one of history's strangest coincidences. Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860, while John F. Kennedy was elected exactly 100 years later in 1960. Both presidents fought strongly for civil rights, and both were assassinated on a Friday while sitting beside their wives. Lincoln was shot inside Ford's theater, while Kennedy was assassinated in a car made by Ford called the Lincoln. Even more strangely, Lincoln's secretary was reportedly named Kennedy, and Kennedy's secretary was named Lincoln. Both assassins are also linked by eerie similarities. John Wilkes Booth was born in 1838, while Lee Harvey Oswald was born exactly 100 years later in 1939. Both assassins were killed before they could stand trial. These bizarre similarities between the two presidents still leave people shocked today.